Anyone online want to make a public comment? Now is your chance. Name, address, limit 3 minutes, please. Roger, did you want to make a comment? Okey doke. Approval of committee minutes from March 3rd, 2026.
Todd, I'll approve the committee minutes for March 3rd, 2026.
Second.
Motion by Todd, second by Tanya. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion with possible action on hydrant flushing media communications. Yes, how do we get the word out?
That would be me. So I just wanted to kind of touch base with you guys a little bit. Our media communication has been relatively the same for the past several years regarding getting the notices out for the hydrant flushings. And we currently post on the city Facebook page, the city website. We do a month prior, we post a message on the bottom of the billing statements, and that is all at no charge to the utility. We do run an announcement on the local radio stations, WVRQ AM and FM, as well as WKPO FM, before the morning, noon, and evening news. 3 days prior to when we flush, and then we continue straight through to the last day of hydrant flushing. The current pricing is $23.34 per spot, with a total cost in 2025 of $3,280. The utility also prints a notice in the Vernon County Times, used to be the broadcaster. We do a 4x5 ad. We used to do bigger, but as the advertising cost increased, we got a little smaller each year. But a 4x5 still is fairly visible. And in 25, we spent $764.90 during the year for both of the ad for the fall and the ad for the spring. So the utility is able to reach, by publishing it in the paper and doing some online notices, the generation or the people that aren't able to maybe rely on Facebook or the website, or have a smartphone or a computer, or just generally don't get all of their news from one of the online resources, may not always look at our messages on our bills, because I feel like a lot of people do, but some people don't. The PSC, I had a discussion with them quite by accident regarding this, and they said that we are more than covered. The PSC just requires one form of communication that you will make sure gets to all of your customers. I think that's fairly hard because not every customer relies on the same piece of information. But my goal tonight, I guess, is to kind of just get your thoughts and your opinions. The reason kind of why I'm bringing this up as well too is the advertising cost for both radio and the newspaper has gone up quite a bit. So since the pandemic, which is kind of like an earmark for a lot of things that kind of have happened, we are paying 2.5 more times for our advertising on the radio and the newspaper than we were then in 2020. 2020 was a total of $1,720, and last year was a total of $4,400 between the two. So I did want to let you know, though, in the grand scheme of things, that really only accounts for 0.5% of our total budget. So in the big picture, it's not a very big expense. So I wanted to get your opinion and see what you think, just because we haven't really talked about this since I've been here.
And me being new enough, this is just to notify the public, the city, that we are going around and doing the flushing. So
Yes.
it isn't to inform them of any of the costs or anything. It's just to notify that it's being done.
It's being done, and then what to do in case, because a lot of times, and Sarah could probably get a little more technical than myself, but a lot of times through flushing the lines, you might release some sediment, and so that may go into property owners' tap water or toilets or bathtubs, and just running the water a couple minutes usually clears that up. And that notice does state that, just so it kind of let them know what to expect ahead of time and then maybe prevent calls from coming in.
Cheryl, can we use the countywide notification system like we get for snow emergencies? Because it's
Good
a public
question.
health hazard.
Yeah, I was thinking about that and I would have to ask Brandon, just because it's not necessarily a emergency, but they don't have. I want to know what like his parameters are
Sure.
around it, but very possibly, because that system's really cool because it lets you target your audience. And so you don't have to necessarily like say that to all of Vernon County. You can say like anybody that was in the city boundary.
Mhm.
So.
And it has the phone call option for people who don't
Mhm.
have a smartphone.
Yeah.
Thinking of
Oh,
I
our,
can check in with him.
thinking of our generational.
Absolutely, 100%. I'm open to ideas.
Also WDRT would be another radio station. Another group of people that don't listen to WVRT.
So we used
how-
to, quite a while ago, advertise on WDRT. And then I think we just had some miscommunications a couple of times right when I first started. And then it just never continued. So yes, we can definitely do that one.
Anybody else have any thoughts about continuing to use Vernon Times?
I don't, do we have any information about how many people actually buy that newspaper?
I
I'm
do
just-
not,
I mean,
not within the city of Broqua.
Sad.
yeah, I mean, I would just think that that might be the one that maybe isn't worth it. And it's free to put something on Vernon Reporter, as far as I can
Yes.
tell.
That's right, you didn't.
And I think-
Actually, yep, Tim just started doing the advertisements for us
Okay.
last
So that-
fall. Mhm.
I
That is fun.
suspect that reaches a wider audience. Are putting it on our bills, even though you almost can't. Read it. I know that. Putting it on the bills, even though you almost can't read it. It's like technically we are letting everybody know.
Mhm, mhm.
Does it come in a different color? Is there, I've
No,
never seen.
we
it.
have
It's just
able to
printed
do
on
that.
the-
Bottom.
Yeah, just the small message. We have room for 2 lines on our billing card. So we have to kind of squish it,
Have to be.
or like 2.5 lines.
I mean, like
It's
West,
not help because a lot of people do actually see that message.
Westby sends their bills out in a envelope where you could stuff something in.
Actually,
you
Westby
wanted
does
to.
not in-house send theirs out. They send all their billing outside, which I did a pricing,
I'm
and
sure it's
it was
horribly
extremely costly.
I was just
especially for
saying
our
that
size. of
that's an
customer
easy
base.
way, like having an envelope is
Yeah.
an easy way to get an insert in, but we don't do that. And
Is that
Yeah.
something that we can't look into again down the road, but
no, it's a
it
waste
was,
of paper.
it was like 4 times the cost and.
I get a bill every month from Westby. It's the way.
Yeah.
But they do have a newsletter actually, which I do read.
Yeah, so any thoughts? I mean, I'm kind of with you about the Vernon Times. I think a lot of people that used to get the Times would now count on the radio.
Mhm,
I'm thinking of the
mhm.
older people that, you know. I don't know, what do you guys?
And it seems like the cleanest savings to eliminate that.
You'd like to support the paper, but
True.
it is our paper, right, our official paper.
Mhm.
The benefit comes from that cost. I would agree with Tanya that it's probably minimal. We're paying a lot of dollars per viewer on that.
Something we could try, and then if you get a whole bunch of complaints that it's not in the broadcaster, I never,
Absolutely. Well, I can also,
of course, I never notice it in the Times, and I'm one of the people that does get the Times. so. All I see are recipes pretty much,
I
but.
think we have our answer right there.
I mean, we can always find out from their single copy division if we can get an idea of the sales in this area. Like within Vernon County. It doesn't, like, we don't know if they go outside of Vernon County or inside, but
Some do.
I mean, it's up to you guys, but
Do we need a motion for anything like that, or just a recommendation?
think so. I mean, I don't need to
Okay.
take this to council
Yeah.
because it's not really like a big policy change. We don't have an official policy. We never have. It's just something that I wanted to make sure that I got your opinions on and if we wanted to move forward and yeah, so.
So you're gonna check
I
into
think
it, possibly not have used Vernon Times. anymore.
Right, we would lean towards not
Okay.
using
Yeah.
times and
So interestingly enough, we're doing hydrant flushing next month, at the end of next month. So I would need to notify the newspaper in about a week. Should I just kind of not for this spring, and then we'll kind of revisit this then in the fall if I've heard of any issues or complaints?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Did you have anything else? Well, that's all that's on that agenda item, I guess.
That's correct. You
Review.
good, Sarah? Okay.
Review and approval of asphalt bids, General City and East South Street.
Okay, so we do 2 bids usually every year. One is for what I say our general asphalt bid. So it's essentially getting a bid up front at the beginning of the year. The most used portion of this is typically the patch work, so that would be generally mostly utility, but it is also on the street side. And then this is something that we can use for budgeting purposes as we move through if something comes up for a project. We do have numbers that I work through, and I think we will be able to do a little more resurfacing than I've currently proposed, which is great. So then depending on the funding source, I might use this rather than asking for a specific bid. So the reason I only have Matthew up here is twofold. One, they were the only bidder, even though I actually do send directly to previous bidders. So they would have, they can see it in the paper, but they also would have seen it because I sent them to them. However, those other bidders haven't previously, like last year, the other bidder, we ended up going with Matthew, so they weren't successful. So, people are pretty busy. One thing you'll notice is that the prices are not necessarily all just going up, which I was happy to see. The patches actually are cheaper. And like I mentioned, those are really like the primary thing that we use this for. So that was a good news. It's not necessarily everywhere, right? Like some of these numbers here were higher than last year. This was last year's bid. But overall, I think the prices were good, if anything benefited us. And Matthew is always a very reliable paving company. So that's for the general asphalt bid. I think they were in one agenda item, if I remember correctly. So the other one is also Matthew. Again, we only had one bidder, even though I sent it out to multiple entities. This one is something that I actually specify a project and see where we come in at. Oh, this is not the right number. The number is, I must have 30. Okay, so this is the project number. That was last year's number, and for some reason it was not updated, but good thing I had that in my mind. Okay, this is the right number though, how it equates out. So Matthew was a single bidder. This is for East South Street. It is between Center and Rusk and Washington. So if you go out there, you might still see the pink paint. You can kind of get a good idea of where we're talking about, but essentially Center's a little different because we're working on that project right now, but we did Rusk and Washington in the last few years. And so it's kind of like we orphaned the space in between the intersections. So this is replacing that area, and why this makes a good in-house project is because we don't have any underground work that we need to do with it. I shouldn't say that. There is small amounts, but it's just abandoning a section. So this is a nice project for us to do. Though you'll also see a bid for concrete curb and aprons next, so that it will be included in the East South Street project. It does equate out to 138. And so I was like, Dan, he's our rep. Like, what's going on? You gave me 115 up there for a similar size project and you give 138. And the reason is he's included fine grading in this. So, and that's really helpful for, Wade, and when they're trying to do that project, they can get the grade pretty close, but then Matthew comes in and then fine grades it for us, which is, they're really good at setting those grades. So it's well worth, I think, the cost there and within the budget of what we have for the project. So my recommendation to pass on to council is to approve Matthew's bid for both the general asphalt and East South Street.
Okay. Any discussion, questions?
I got a question. What was, or maybe clarify what was the time frame for people to get their bids in?
This one was really long, actually. I think it was a month and a half that it was in the paper. Oh, it wasn't in the paper consistently, but I advertised it a month and a half before the deadline. Usually we need to give at least 2 weeks in the paper. And so that time frame, but I wanted to give time for people to get things together. So people had plenty of time to see it.
That's good. Anyone want to make a motion or talk about it some more?
This is Seth. I make a motion that we approve the bids from Matthew for the overall city asphalt,
city?
general city asphalt, and the East South Street asphalt.
She
bid.
probably wants amounts. No, okay.
I'll second that.
Can handle it.
Good.
Can't do amounts because we don't know what all the projects are for the general part of it anyway.
Correct. Yeah, it's just the
Yeah.
individual line items.
Okay. Roll call though.
Seth,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
AJ,
Aye.
Tanya,
Aye.
and Cindy.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Review and approval of concrete bids, East South Street.
Okay, so same situation. In the past, we've done it both ways when we do in-house projects. Sometimes we can salvage the curb, and that's always nice because then you can reuse it. In this case, those areas, the curb is just in terrible shape. One, it was overlaid, so like the gutter has an asphalt layer on top of it, but even at that, it's in really bad shape. So we're going to do it right. And so we went for bids, and I was happy to see that the new changes in legislation actually increased the minimum like I would have to go out for bid previously at 25,000. And so when I look at this project, I have to bring everything together. I have to include the asphalt and the concrete and make that total. I'm not allowed to split it out. So I actually had to go to bids for East South Street. We ended up getting quite a few bids in actually for the concrete. So, it was interesting to see them come in and who bid what. So, we had 4 bidders. Most of them are pretty close. I think the one gentleman was newer to the work. So, everybody was pretty close. Some people were lower in one area and the other, but Ageli was low across the board. And it doesn't surprise me. They have the project on Center Avenue, right? So like they're already here and they can knock out concrete curb like quickly.
Since AJ doesn't know what we're laughing about, maybe you could.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
forget you can't see what I'm seeing. Okay. So Fowler and Hammer had a curb. It was a linear foot price of $22.45. And the driveway is a square foot price of $9.10. And that would be like when we're coming through, there's driveway approaches that are going to get disturbed by the curb being removed. So we want to make sure we're putting everything back where it is. And a lot of those have the old like bullhorn kind of smaller curbs that are like, or driveway approaches that kind of like have the curb that comes in and meets the flare or the approach. So anyway, long story short, we're going to be replacing those as well. Caliber was at $24 a foot for curb and $8.23 per square foot for driveway. And then Concrete Creations was $60 a linear foot, but $9 a square foot for the driveway. And then Ageli came in at $21 for the curb and $8 for the driveway. Oh, and there you are. So. Yeah. All right. Well,
Good
now
job,
that everyone
Sarah.
can see what's
Good
up
job.
there.
Yeah.
All right. So my recommendation obviously is what's in yellow, which is using a galley with the $21 linear foot for curb and $8 a square foot for driveway approaches.
Okay, anybody have any questions? No? You want to make a motion there, Todd? You're itching to, I can tell. Oh, you can do it.
This is Seth. I make a motion that we move forward with the Agali bid of $21 per square for linear foot curb and $8 driveway for the East South Street.
Todd will second it.
What a guy.
I like
Okay. Now can we do a roll call?
Todd,
Aye.
EJ,
Aye.
Tanya, Cindy,
Aye.
and Seth.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Discussion and approval to open debt reserve money market account.
Okay, so we currently have 5 loans with water sewer loans with the USDA. And the USDA does require an account that's called a debt reserve account. And every year that we have a loan, each loan has a certain amount of money that has to be contributed to the debt reserve fund until it builds up to a point where it fully funds the last payment of the loan. And then when the loan matures, that money in the debt reserve fund is there to pay the loan. It's also an insurance, so to speak, that the USDA wants to have because in case something happens to the utility, the funds, they have a catastrophic year or something happens and all their funds are depleted. These funds are restricted, which means we cannot touch these funds to operate for general water and sewer expenses. So these funds will always be here. Our current debt reserve account is at 0.15% interest. It was higher, and then Citizens First Bank, which we are housing this one, I have actually 2 of them, one at People's State Bank and one at Citizens First Bank. They did lower some of their interest rates in the last year. So I did talk with a representative at Citizens First Bank, and we are able to open a second money market account that will give us 1% interest on the balance, which 0.85% interest doesn't seem like a whole lot, but we currently have $57,000 in there, and eventually we'll have well over 300,000 by the time we're done. Now, our next loan, our first loan, does not mature for 30 years. So I realize we have a lot of time, but for example, last month, we made $6.53 interest versus if we were in this money market, it would have been $57.35 interest. So times that by 12 times 30 years, we're talking several $1,000s. And well, I know that it's, 30 years from now, but you have to look towards the future and the health of the utility towards the future. So I'm asking to open up a money market account to hold our water and sewer USDA debt reserve funds and pass this on to council for approval.
I appreciate you going to all that work to think this out and inform us what's going on. Anybody have any questions or discussions? Sounds like a good plan.
This isn't anything new. They've always required a reserve. It's kind of an escrow for the loan.
It's a good way to put it. And no, this is not new. This is, well, I don't know that for sure, but since I've been here, it's always been in our loan documents.
We typically try and use a money market as that escrow account.
I typically try to find anything I can.
Yeah. Okay.
I have at People's State Bank, I have the rest of the funds that are required in a CD that I keep rolling over every time it matures. But as a discussion for another time, it has a lot more funds. It has over $100,000 in the CD. This one is one of our lower accounts, but it's still keeping it at Citizens First Bank. So we have some of our money still at that bank.
Did People's State Bank have like a 1% or anything like that? Or is that just the better place to open it up was Citizens First?
Yeah, so we've kind of, the utility has our money kind of spread around through a lot of different pots. We have our primary checking account at Citizens First Bank, and we have some smaller accounts, including this one at Citizens First Bank. At People's State Bank, we have 3 accounts that have fairly larger deposits because that's kind of how it was when I got here. I've just made some different accounting moves or investment moves. I also then took a couple $1 million and actually put it in the local government investment pool. And that's drawing the most interest and is the most secure. It's, we're not like, the banks are, FDIC insured up to 250,000. This local government investment pool is insured up to 100 million. So, and that usually it's been running about 4.5%, but as interest rates are falling, that has now fallen below 4% for the first time in 2020. But I will probably keep that money there. But if all of a sudden People's State Bank or Citizens First Bank says, oh, we can get the CD for 6%, it's worth looking at moving that money around. And so I'm kind of like every month I kind of look and see what's out there and what we can move and what we can't. And
Did you say anything about Royal Bank?
I've not
Or
looked at Royal
Associate-
Bank. We have traditionally not invested there, but that does not mean I can't look at it. Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
for sure.
and down the road by the fairgrounds, Associated, is that what they're called? Down there? Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to approve the money market account?
ZJ, I make a motion that we move forward and approve to open the second debt reserve money market account
So Seth, I second.
At Citizens.
at Citizens.
Okay, we have motion and a second. That's just a voice vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion with possible action on brush and compost plan. I have a feeling that's why we have a
Yeah, Wade and I are gonna tag team this one. And I'm gonna start, but Wade is gonna jump in anytime he wants, so make sure you got yeah, good. Okay. So we've obviously had a lot of conversation about the brush and compost site. And then we recently had a $15,000 bill trying to clean up everything out there, right? And so we wanted to think about how we could do things better. Part of the reason, the main reason we ended up having that so much of a bill is that they've restricted how we burn out there, right? We used to just kind of let it burn in the wintertime, burn until it was clear, but they won't allow us to have anything burning overnight, burning unattended, and anything has to be like in a quantity that it will be able to go out within that day. So that really changed everything for us, right? So we're looking at how to do things differently, and we've talked about, oh gosh, I don't even know how many different options. And the guys came up with a great idea, and I thought it was really awesome that they thought outside the box. And so that's what we're going to present tonight, see if you guys like it. And, everything here is somewhat of an experiment because, what's happening is not working, but let's figure out what the best option is. So what we thought about was having anything that's residential. So your yard waste that you want to get rid of, that you're not getting picked up by the city, and you want to dispose of, to bring it to a location in the city at the shop. So we would set up a location. I'll let Wade talk about how he wants to set it up, but set up a location in the city at the shop where there's just more people, like more eyeballs, more things happening, especially during the day. Help us keep the piles in more of a controlled setting, so to speak. So like making sure things really do get separated as much as we can. We'll be seeing what's happening regularly. And then we would haul that amount to go out to the brush site, and the brush site would then be closed to residents. So that will be locked, but this will be available to be used, and it's even more central, hopefully, for some people. So that would be how we kind of mitigate and keep a track of what is happening residentially just by local folks using it. It also would help us sort of document it better. So like when they load and like move things out, we actually write down like how much are we receiving from the public. And then another large part of what we have is our stuff. So obviously we'd still use, we go straight out to the brush and compost site with our loads. And then there's another sort of portion of the users, which are commercial folks that are working in town, but they're like tree cutting businesses, and Todd would be one of them, right? And so we would work with them to have a key to go into the brush and compost site based on a fee. So like we would charge and we'd work out what that is. I think Wade, you said that La Crosse charges $2,000. We talked today about like, how could we make it appropriate for how much people bring, right? So like, you know, Todd might not bring as much as the other guy in town or the other two guys in town. And so we just kind of figure out what makes sense. So that would be really restrictive. Like there'd be like 3 or 4 people that would be allowed to use the key. They'd have a key and they'd pay essentially for that use. All of these locations would have cameras, so we'd be able to tell and verify, like if we start seeing things happen that are not supposed to happen. So that would be sort of our way of trying to control, because one of the things that we're suspect of is that because you can get to the brush and compost site from outside of town, and it's maybe not super clear to everybody that you're supposed to only bring stuff that coming from the city of Viroqua city limits to that, we think we're getting some additional users. And so again, we're paying it with our taxes, right? Like the city residents are. So trying to make sure we keep that as well. And that we would also ask them to keep a log, like how much are you bringing? And it would be the honor system with them, right? Obviously, kind of like how we've done like water use and things like that. But at least to try to get a more of a handle on like how much are people bringing in? Where is it coming from? And so another thing that they struggle with is like things get mixed, like we're not getting true separations. And so that it's making it even harder to like handle everything, because it's kind of not one type of like brush or wood or compost. And so then we can better manage the folks that can actually go directly to the brush and compost site, because it's only going to be a handful of people. And then Wade was successful that we've done our first non-winter burn, and we're able to do that, like clean everything up that was out there since we shredded. And so that kind of gives us a little bit better control of the situation. But if for some reason we can't stay on top of it, for whatever reason, then we're starting to have this pot of money that we can use to have the guy come in and grind it again, right? Because right now we don't have any income from our brush and compost. And so we have a $500 budget. And then we obviously overspent that budget where I had to pull it from somewhere else. So it's going to obviously take a lot of learning. Like we're going to have to educate people and go through this process. But I thought, you know what, that's like such an awesome idea. They came up with it. I think it's like totally addressing a lot of these things that we struggle with. And so do you want to talk, Wade, about like how you'd set it up at the shop and stuff?
Well, what we're gonna try, I guess, is on the east side of our new salt and sand shed down there, clear off a spot. And those concrete blocks like we got in our flower bed down there, it'd probably take about 3 dozen at about $60 a piece, which would be about 2,500 to make 2 rows with the back. We'll get a hold of Diggers Hotline, put some signs up. Whether people obey by them or not, we can't control it. Brush, wood, compost. Monday, Tuesday, we haul it away, whether it be 1 pickup load or 10 pickup loads. The last few days, one of the guys have been burning, and he's so far been successfully being able to keep up. But as we all know, summertime is way different. And if you can't, and we can't. And then, you know, if it gets out of hand with, you know, we can't burn wood and have that out at the end of the night. If we get 2 or 3 years worth of wood that we just can't do nothing with, maybe we have a little bit of this revenue with the feed and maybe hire Jeff again. And like what Sarah said, perhaps I've seen a few eyebrows kind of crinkle when this was brought up, but the reason is like what Sarah says, is to keep the use just for the residents taxpayers, because we're getting people from La Crosse, Lafarge, everywhere that come in at middle of nights. Man, we've seen grills down there, stoves, swing sets. I'm like, come on, people, really? This way, at least they're on, you know, we can, you know, try to stop them from that. You know,
Would it be simple enough to have minimal cost security camera off the side of the
Yes.
salt shed to just
yes, that's, we're gonna have one of them.
something
Yes.
surprising?
And we,
goes up?
like, what gets brought in down there at 9 o'clock at night, who knows? I mean, we can't, and if it gets too bad, we'll go to Hagerstown, we'll put up a gate, we'll lock it at 3:30.
Down here,
Yeah,
this one.
if it
yeah.
gets too out of hand, and then. But we'll have some,
God.
kind of like what Snack Bars got, Seth, bins down there for, but we're only gonna need 3 of them, we'll just. But
As long as
like
it's,
Sarah, we've rattled back and forth with chippers and insinuators and Jeff and digging a pit, well,
fairly easy to load with the end loader.
I
to
think
get
we
that
do it every
revenue,
week.
you know?
I think we should be able to hopefully stay on top of it. The big wood, you know, is it gonna be kind of a hassle? Maybe, yeah, maybe, because we're gonna have maybe 1 load of compost, 1 load of brush, 1 load of wood. But if this is the way it's gotta be, then it's.
So wait,
$15,000 is a lot of our budget.
yeah. Well, it's a way more constructive idea than I thought you were gonna say city sponsored weenie roast of.
Yeah. Well, and
Removal, right?
I love like
Community.
even the pieces that we'd use are reusable, like those blocks, we could use them for something else. So like if this doesn't work, it's not like we just spent $2,500 on something we couldn't use elsewhere.
Give. Is it gonna be, are we gonna get a lot of grief? Yes, probably so. And then I also thought what if somebody wants to just go down and get a half a pickup load of leaves, which is a separate pile? We'll get some keys made, you know, and then have them sign out, you know, for
So
the
you're
garden or
thinking
whatever.
grief because the gate's locked out at the old site?
The gate will be
Yeah.
locked with the exception of
You'll
the
think there'll be some
bigger
blowback.
contractors. And you're,
Sorry, they'll be able to come. I mean,
Yeah, I-
most people who live in the city, it might actually be easier for them to get to.
Right.
We're gonna have to have cameras out there too, because people are probably gonna take a while and not wanna like, oh, I'm out here and
there'll be people that pile it outside the gate. Todd can testify to that. He put in 31 years here. And
It's always gonna be.
I'm open for any other
Abusers.
suggestions, but I
I
we
like
gotta try, I think.
it is the best solution I've heard so far. And like I said, it is an experiment. I mean, we might find that this is not gonna work, but I think it makes sense for so many. So the key thing that we were talking about is the one part in all of this is that people do come and get firewood out and they do come and get some compost, but it's so many less people. So that would be the scenario where we would have to deal with letting people have the key. And we also talked about like, do we put good wood that someone might want for firewood, like on the side so that it can be picked up from the shop instead of necessarily people going all the way out. So we can kind of work through it.
Couldn't
But
they
I-
also, pardon me, but couldn't they also pick it up here before it's taken out there?
Correct. That's what I mean. Like
Oh,
we
that's
could
what you're
just
talking
set
about.
aside some things that
Yeah.
look really good and then people can swing by there. I think just that there's more eyeballs, like there's the apartment and there's us and I mean, there'll be a camera, but it's just, I think it's not as easily accessible, but it still allows us to use that site and it still allows big users to use that site. And the idea of having things more cleanly organized because there's just less people having access to it really helps us try to get rid of the material as well. So,
Okay.
Yeah, that was my only concern was that extra labor it was gonna.
One more
we're gonna
thing.
use.
The brush probably will get out of hand down to the burn site during the summer because there's crops down there. I
Mhm.
mean, even if you burn
Good.
a little bit, that we're still kind of,
Yeah.
no pun intended, playing with fire, with corn and beans on the side. We can't do that. So, but unless we build some kind of berm around it and try to, but I think if just give it time, or it'll get out, it'll work.
Well, thank you, guys.
I think it's a great idea.
Good for you.
I'm not to get charged. I realize that, but it's, yeah, we used to lock that gate all the time. And like Wade said, lock gate, we still got, you name it, was in there.
It's-
You know, we can't, somebody would say they don't underneath a brush or something, they'd bring in drills and like I said, Wade, I mean, they brought in everything still. So this is a good idea where they can keep an eye on it better.
It's great. So do you need anything from us?
Well, I think that if we
It's
want to put this
possible
in action, we
so
should probably go to council,
when
right?
would you start doing this?
I would say as soon as we're getting our stuff, yeah, yeah, start getting ourselves set up, and we were talking about maybe, getting the stuff going to the city shop and getting that word out as much as we can, and then start like literally locking the gate and having signs that say like you cannot,
Okay.
only commercial use only, or something along those lines. So
And Trina will get to advertise.
yeah, Trina's gonna
Okay.
be busy.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you think a simple sign out at the old site
Yeah.
directing them to the city?
I
of
think that's
health?
critical, yeah.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion?
Do we need this motion to include cost of those retaining blocks?
I was thinking that we should budget like $4,000 to $5,000 in total. I think the blocks are like the 2,500, and then cameras and then signs probably are closer to 335, but just so that we don't have to keep coming back.
Yeah.
And I think by the end of the day, we'll probably end up sending that. And it may even be something where we try to make a note on the radio or something, like, just kind of get the word out. So if that's okay.
Well, this is Seth. I make a motion that we approve budget up to $5,000 to accommodate the creation of the new compost and waste site at the city buildings.
It's like a
shop.
transfer station almost.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Motion by Seth, second by Todd. Since we have money involved, roll call, please.
Tanya,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Todd,
All right.
and AJ.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Discussion with possible action on landfill gas extraction design.
Okay. This is another big one. So we have Mike Amstead on with us here. And we're at the stage with the landfill that they're busy in design. I'll show you some of the work they've got to at this point here. Sorry, I have to organize my screens, and I'm not as good at this as Nate is. Come on. There we go. Okay. So this is like our two sides of our landfill here, and this is their first, their first go at trying to figure out where here we go. My little bar is, so I can pull it this way. Anyway, so the red lines that you see are their first draft of how they would connect all the wells, and the wells are what you see in purple. And we need to submit this design to the DNR before we're allowed to move forward with any bidding or ordering of parts. And in particular, the blowers we're finding that there's supposed to be a pretty decent lead time of months, like 6 months kind of time frame to get it. And so meaning we need to make a move on knowing what our design is going to be and approving the design so that we can start ordering things that we need. So the big question, because everything, it's almost like a sewer system. My analogy is right, because all of this is more or less kind of working with gravity, sort of. So it's a vacuum system, but there's condensation that's created. And so then there either needs to be like a slope that always go in one direction, or if there's a low spot, there has to be a way to bleed off the condensation. And so all of the pipe slopes are important. And what that comes down to is, where are we putting the blowers? And so that's the big question of the day, is we need a pretty general good idea about where we're putting the blowers in order to submit the design. And so I let Mike jump in a little bit more about it, but what he's got so far, and I actually didn't mind seeing it the way it was, is having this be the location of the blowers. So just as a frame of reference, like this is not necessarily the blower system with flare that we would have, but this is a blower system with flare. There's, these, what they call like a skid. Oh, sorry, you're not seeing that. Which is kind of like, again, this blower that's all like in one skid with everything you need in it. And these are what that operating part would look like. And then there's all sorts of things you can do with enclosures, fencing, an entire building. Like there's variations on how we want to deal with this because this does make noise, right? I think Mike said it's the same as a vacuum decibel wise.
It's between a vacuum and a blender, decibel wise.
So we are trying to figure out, so it's going to have noise, right? It's going to end up being something that it will likely be in an enclosure. And this thing here, oh, my arrows, there it is.
Talking continuous noise?
Yes. Well,
Yes.
yes. So there may be a time where there isn't continuous noise, but we should plan for continuous noise. This is what like a flare would look like. So that means like we're going to have this flame that people can see, right? And I was talking to Mike about it today, like, oh, there's trees already there. I wonder if we could use them. And he's like, well, we don't also want to start them on fire, right? So, something to think about how close we might put some of the screening. But just as a frame of reference, did I close it already? Hold on, I'll get it up here quick. Just so that you can kind of see where we're talking about. I'll pull this up, but while I do so, Mike, do you want to go into the idea of like it could be two locations, not one location?
Yes, so we are thinking having a blower for each of the two landfills. And when you look at the available space for the east landfill, really the only place, and you don't want to put the skid on top of the landfill on top of waste where it could settle. So in the east landfill, really the only place we can put it is kind of over behind the church. Kind of right up next to the road, because even that little triangle, when we did the test pit, we found waste over there. So the east landfill doesn't have a good spot to put it where it's not on waste or has a significant slope to it. So what we looked at doing is piping underneath the road to a common spot by the west landfill where we could what they tried to sell me in the city, I guess, because I'm not buying it, is, the skid comes with two blowers and one flare, and that way you have a backup so you can do maintenance on one and the other one keeps running. And I'm like, no, we can't afford that. But I did like the idea of if they can put two blowers on a skid and one flare, we have one location. We have one blower for each landfill and only one flare. So you eliminate the need for having two skids, two flares. You have just one skid, two blowers on it, and a flare. So, but by doing that, we have to go across the road there, under the road, under the ditch, and when you go under things, kind of like Sarah was saying, you're making a low point. And if you make a low point, all the condensate's going to fill up that low point and then block off the vacuum. So you have to basically what we call is a drip leg. In a common sink in your house, you'd have a trap. So somewhere where the water can get out, but vacuum won't be pulled back in that low point. Then we could work on tying into the sanitary sewer, either pumping it out, otherwise we'd have something, a tank, where it'd have to be a vac truck would have to come and empty the tank and then take it to the wastewater treatment plant. All those details we haven't worked out, but it's kind of where are we going to put this? And I mean, closer to the trailer park, there's a big, flat area. There's, plenty of room, but is it kind of out of the way, out of the sight of people? I mean, this is a little bit higher in elevation, so, is it going to possibly be seen at Main Street at night? Possible, it's possible. But after a while, honestly, people get used to it and they'll call you when I don't see the flame. Why don't I see the flame? So people just after a while will get used to it.
One of the things I liked about this location is that it was kind of the furthest away from everywhere. So like here is going to be the stormwater pond, and then like the housing is going to be more up here. This area is talked about being developed, but they've talked about putting the stormwater ponds here on this end. The Creamery Creek is still a ways away. It is closest to the mobile home court, but it's going to have to be close to it-ish in some way. And so I actually thought that it was, when I first saw it, I'm like, that's actually not a bad spot. So that's what we're looking for, is from some feedback. I just, as a frame of reference, because sometimes a two-dimensional drawing isn't great. So like here's Chicago Avenue. We're going to go on a little tour. This is where we still store our snow. Here are some of the first row or street of the mobile home court. We have this low area. This is where the wastewater treatment plant used to be. And this is where people store things. There was an agreement made between the city and the mobile home court. So here's the other side of the landfill. And we have this waterway here, and there's Creamy Creek. So the area that we're talking about is like in this area right here. So it's not going to be right at anybody's front door, so to speak, but you're going to, see people in the distance here. Those are, this is storage. These are the homes over here, but it's this kind of area in here that he's talking about. So anybody have any initial thoughts?
Was that flame burning all the time? Will that bother the airport?
That's a good one to check. I don't think it'll be higher than the landfill, but we should certainly check in with the airport. Good call.
If you're just looking for feedback, I like the idea of one central location for both landfills. The idea of having it on that west side.
Yeah, I didn't like the idea over by the church. That would cause problems.
Yes, especially since they added that little playground in the back there and the basketball hoop, and it's like, just not ideal.
And you've got the low spot problems figured out, it sounds like, the condensation.
It's engineering, so yeah.
Yeah, we're working on it. What I'd like to be able to do is have it all gravity and not have a pump involved, but Sarah has told me that the sanitary sewer is up high, so it may pose a problem where we do need a pump or a vac truck needed.
A mini pump in our world.
Yes.
Comparison. So more like a sump pump, I'm assuming you're going to see.
Not to rush such an important decision, but we have 6 minutes still.
And I know that we do have somebody that wants to make a public comment. So we can certainly take more. What I would like to do, just because of the time frame, is to move this on so we could have a conversation at council and let everybody feedback come through.
Sounds good.
Can I just ask Mike, before that conversation happens, is it possible to have a little more understanding of, so that whatever that decibel is for the sound, how can you give us like concentric rings about how that drops as the further away you get as we head toward the corner of the mobile home park? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
It does. We're a big company. I will find out who is our noise expert.
Or just
Well, and I
a
think-
better idea, or maybe Sarah, you can look at that.
So I will say, like, my experience with the noisy blowers that we used to have at the wastewater plant is that,
Mhm.
I mean, we'll certainly be able to have sort of an area that would hear it more, but it depends on wind direction that given day. It depends on like what's going on around it. So, I mean, I think he'll
Understandable.
probably get a pretty good idea, but
Yep.
you know, there's certain days where you could hear it and other days that you couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of
Fencing
depends.
would go along.
We could probably bring a vacuum in to
Okay.
council.
Yeah,
Take
it
it.
has to go forward to council, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then just to clarify, any smell that's emanating is going to be coming from that spot the most. Is that true? Or is it pretty
Correct.
much coming everywhere?
Correct. That'll be the location. If the flame is burning, it should be almost minimal.
Okay, thank you.
Want to make a motion, Tanya?
Yes,
There.
as long as we do allow plenty of time to talk about it at council,
I'm just going to pass it forward. to
we
council.
will pass this, I make a motion to pass this forward to council without any recommendation from us, just to have the discussion moved on.
Okay. Motion-
Seth, I'd second that.
Motion by Tanya, second by Seth. All in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
We could send this out in the packet too, so people.
So we
have some-
better go to, is there any?
Thanks, Mike.
construction?
Don't worry about the updates.
Okay, we will go to second period for public comment. I think it's, you're on, Ruthie.
Yeah.
You have to go up there. I don't know if the
Here, you
mic
can
is
use
on.
This one.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ruthie Zom.
Address, please.
I live in Westby, E9459 Liam Road, Westby, Wisconsin, 54667.
Thank you.
I spoke with Sarah a couple days ago about the Court Street lot. Is that actually what the name of it is? Court Street lot, the Mr. G's lot. I've had a couple of delivery drivers specifically threatening to not deliver in that lot anymore because there are very large potholes. Although today it was a really nice, good fix on that lower part. It looked like. Did you get to see it? Yes.
That's our.
Okay, perfect. So in that, their only other option, the reason I started to get a little, we should talk about it, is these trucks are big enough that if they couldn't pull into the lot or they're refusing to pull into that lot, the only other real spot would be actually right in front of Court Street. And they're there for a good solid 30 minutes when they're delivering, which is not going to make people happy. So Sarah recommended that I come here first to potentially be able to bring to council a recommendation of, can we fix the lot? Can we resurface it? We need to do something hopefully to that lot for parking, for whatever it is, just to make sure that it's actually a passable and redone lot.
Okay,
Please and thank you.
yes. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay. Anybody online want to make a comment? Okay, adjournment.
I'll make motion to adjourn.
AJ, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.